31702.
Join us.
Let's walk the talk.
This is 702.
Hello again. Electricity. How do you feel about what's happening at the moment? These little hidden costs that we keep getting exposed to. Sometimes you find out about it, about somebody telling you on the WhatsApp group what's going on. And I'm going to bring in Thomas Bergenthuin, an energy expert and founder of solar company called The Bees. A very good afternoon to you, Thomas.
Good afternoon. Thanks a lot for having me online.
Well, it's great to have you with us. I think this is an important conversation at an important time. It hasn't been the coldest winter we've had, but it's been pretty, nippy at certain times of the day. What sort of impact does that have on us and our electricity costs, other than going up?
Yes, I mean, we've seen a lot of Eskom's capacity shortages and also its financial problems. And its financial problems is really what's driving the increase in tariffs. Eskom simply just can't survive with tariffs as they are. And that's not even talking about them actually having to build more capacity, which fortunately we're using the private sector to a large extent to do. But getting back to your question, when we have cold snaps, in general, people use more electricity, and this places more strain on the grid. But it won't necessarily increase the total cost of producing the electricity, so it won't have an impact.
Okay, what will have an impact are those tariffs which keep going up. 12.7% on Monday, the 1st of July, and City Power saying that, hey, we're going to slap this 200 Rand basic charge. Talk us firstly through that 200 Rand basic charge, what it means for me and for you.
Yeah, so the 200 Rand basic charge, it's 230 Rand. It's made up of what's called a capacity charge for 150 and a service charge for 80 Rand. And those are surcharges. So regardless of the amount of electricity that you use, you're going to have to pay it. And where these charges are really coming from is people moving to alternative sources of energy and moving away from Eskom, moving away from the municipalities, which leads to them selling less electricity, getting less revenues, having to push tariffs up. And, as you see, it becomes an unsustainable cycle for them. So they try and make up for this by having larger fixed charges, which unfortunately is very difficult, especially for people who are trying to reduce the cost of electricity by installing solutions like solar.
I mean, I'm intrigued. Anybody who's listening, what do you do to keep the costs down? Do you have a fire going? I mean, have you gone the solar power panel route? What is it to that you advise that we should do, that you found works for you? I've got a message here from somebody. There's no name, though. Nurse and Eskom continue to swear word the users, again, as they have over the past 17 years. Delete. The load shedding debacle continues, stolen money from electricity users. I mean, the problem is until we get a functioning system and until we root out the corruption, we're going to be subjected to this for a long time, aren't we?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I mean, South Africa desperately needs an efficient system. And, I mean, we haven't had one, we haven't had cost reflective tariffs, which has driven this. And we've had a lot of corruption with, money stolen in between really, revenues and what needs to be produced. So it's a situation that will continue until the system becomes more efficient.
I mean, whenever we talk about electricity costs, power costs, the problems that we all suffer because of incompetence and corruption, I mean, people get really, really angry. I mean, we've got Tabang here who's saying, you know, what City Power is doing, that 200 Rand basic charge is criminal, and we will fight this. An uprising is coming. Watch this space. I mean, it's amazing how angry people get, and yet we see very little street action or very little people power here. Is that what is needed?
Well, perhaps it's what's needed.
That or buy your solar panels.
I wouldn't be able to say for sure. I mean, something that that you can do is to try and become less reliant upon the grid, but by installing solar power. But as you know, most people have done so with the grid as backup. So that wouldn't free you from this 200 Rand charge. The only way would be to go completely off grid, which is extremely expensive because everything needs to be oversized for the worst case scenario. That leaves you at the bang solution. I don't know.
Take to the streets, but don't crash and burn, that thing that we do so well in South Africa. Let's listen to this voice note about being punished for not going off the grid.
Good afternoon. So if I'm understanding this correctly, we were forced to find alternative sources of power because they failed to provide us with power. And now we are being punished for finding those alternative sources of power. We're being punished for not relying on the grid anymore. Is that what I'm understanding? Is that what we're paying for?
Thomas, what's your response to that?
Well, I mean, Eskom and the municipalities are basically looking out for themselves in the future. So they're saying if more people defect, but they still use the grid as a backup, then they're going to have to pay for that luxury of doing so. So yes, to a certain extent, what the listener was saying is correct, but yeah, it's a bit more complex than that.
Like most things, right? Let's take a little break, and we're going to be talking more about electricity and what we can do, how we can be more smart and save some money.
Bongani Bingwa, 702 Breakfast.
Weekday mornings, 6 to 9.